Just start it now. I'm also joined here today by a couple of other Nocturne folks. Morgan Bath, who's our Director of Artist Care, and B. Mosher, who is our Director of Programming. So all three of us will be facilitating, and you might be hearing a little bit of feedback, or any of us, the three of us, answering questions. If you do have any other questions, you're welcome to put them in the chat. And there will be time as well at the end for folks as well to ask any questions that they may have. I will also be going back and forth between presentation slides, sharing my screen, as well as sharing, the budget template and other kind of working documents that might be useful. Yeah, so most of the time we'll be sharing the screen. I'll start now. All right, can everyone see my screen all right? Yes. All right. Great. So here we are, our call for submissions information session for Nocturne, Halifax. I've got about 20 slides that we'll end up going through today. So hopefully it's, not too long. So as I mentioned before, this presentation is being recorded and will be added to our website for others who aren't able to join us tonight. You can also access the live closed captioning by clicking through at the bottom of your screen. Everyone should be able to do this independently. Tech support can also be accessed through the chat by messaging either myself or B or Morgan. I'd also just like to take this moment to acknowledge that Nocturne takes place within Mi'kma'ki, the ancestral and unceded territory of the Mi'kmaq people. We also acknowledge the significant foundations and the infrastructure and culture of the Black and African Nova Scotia communities that have played in building this province and the country. And we work to collaborate, amplify, and connect with the many communities and art communities that live and work in Mi'kma'ki. The other thing, Jabuktuk is also Halifax for those who are joining us from outside of the province. Oops. Sorry, I should just mention first, this is our highlight reel from 2022. So it just gives you a bit of an introduction of the festival. And it's only about a minute long. So yeah, that's, sorry. So that's Nocturne. So for those who might not necessarily be as familiar with Nocturne, we are an Art at Night festival. This is our 16th year that we've had the festival. Last year we had 62 different groups that participated through different types of projects, including the Beacon projects or juried projects, which you're here for information about how to apply for, including community groups and other anchor projects or curated projects as well. And we had about 60,000 attendees over the 3-day festival. One of the things we try and think about for Nocturne is a theme. This year, we're doing things a bit differently than we've done in previous years recently, where we've had a curator set the theme. This year, what we're doing is we are looking to all the feedback that we've received from our artists and members of the Halifax community around the festival, and really thinking about the theme being nocturne in a way, and what makes Nocturne great. And Steph, who's an artist that participated last year, provided this amazing piece of feedback that I think really speaks to the ethos of the festival and what we're trying to capture. So the point, part of the point of Nocturne is to transform the city into a wondrous, meandering artscape, and for people to experience it in a way that they haven't before, for people to get swept up in it by accident. So really thinking about all these people who are coming out. A lot of folks, this is maybe the only time that they get out and experience art in the year, and they do it annually, and they come downtown, and really getting this opportunity to be just taken by what they find around a corner, or in their favorite shop, or in a back alley, or in a parkade, or at the waterfront. So really looking to just go down the rabbit hole. Our festival schedule this year is over 4 days, Thursday, October 12th to Sunday, October 15th. The projects that we'll be talking about mostly tonight will be for the Saturday, October 14th, the Sunday, October 15th, and the artist talks and everything that'll be taking place on the Friday. So all projects that participate or take place as part of Nocturne need to fall within Nocturne's core values. So one of the most important things is that it is independent, non-commercial, and a contemporary art festival. So that means that all the artworks and projects that we include in the festival are free to attend. So no ticketed events or anything like that, or where people need to pay to apply or participate in it. So the general public should not have to pay, and that includes work taking place in public spaces as well. We encourage emerging artists, emerging artists, creatives, arts workers, and makers to apply. And we aim to support efforts that are exploratory, challenging, and critical in nature. We encourage applicants to propose new works as well as projects that have been started or completed elsewhere. We encourage artists in all mediums to apply. We seek to view applicants from a lens of equity and aim to create space for equal opportunities. We encourage proposals for interactive and engaging installations. We also have a commitment to decreasing barriers and are committed to decreasing barriers at Nocturne, and do our best to ensure that the venues and projects at Nocturne reflect those commitments. Part of that, in a lot of our proposals, we do ask about accessibility and thinking about this in terms of our venues as well, and the work that is submitted. So Nocturne Halifax generally takes place across 5 different zones that 4 of the zones are in Halifax. So we've got kind of the university's Spring Garden Road area, downtown, the waterfront, the North End, which is generally along Gottingen Street, and then downtown Dartmouth. These zones stay the same for this year. This map is kind of our project map from last year. So you can kind of see how things were organized by the zones. Yeah, so generally we want to make sure that people can kind of move from project to project by foot and really thinking about street level access. In addition to the main kind of call for submissions, which is for the Saturday night, we do have a couple of additional pieces, projects that we're looking at as well. So the first one of these is our daytime family-friendly project that's going to be taking place at Dartmouth Commons. So if we go back, that's the work that's taking place on the Sunday, October 15th. During the daytime. So this project here, all of our projects, we do pay artist fees, car fac fees, material production expenses, including accessibility costs, artist care, and travel. This project, one of the things that we found last year, we had a daytime project that happened on the Sunday. And it was really lovely to leave space during the daytime for a project that was accessible for a different group of people who might not go out at night or be enjoying the evening festival in the same way. So that could be folks with families, folks who are looking at maybe having a low sensory experience, or folks who are interested in just doing something during the daytime. So we have a call for a single project that will take place in Dartmouth Commons. Its requirements are that it's family friendly, that it does take place during the daytime, and that it does consider and take place in Dartmouth Commons. Besides that, all the other same criteria apply. So artist fees and the submission process is very much the same. A second kind of special call that we have this year is one that we're doing with Propeller Brewing. So Propeller's been one of our partners and sponsors, I think since Nocturne started like 15 years ago. And the last few years, there's been a specific Nocturne brew. And one of the things that we're doing this year is a special call that will include a site-specific work that will take place at the Gottingen Street Brewery and Tap Room, as well as a label design. So the label design can be or should be related to the temporary public artwork that will be located inside the space or in front of Propeller in the vicinity. And the other thing that's interesting about this call, there's a $1,000 additional fee for the can design. So I encourage folks, in addition to looking at our main call, to think about if this is something that you might be interested in. So where the main call isn't for site-specific works, once again, this one is, but it still pays artist fees. It does have an additional fee for the can design. There are, I think, 5,000 can labels that will be printed. Yeah, So it should be fun. It's a bit different. It's a bit of an experiment for us this year, but I think it'll be amazing, whatever it ends up being. You can also find in this specific call information about the layout and all of the amenities that are within Propeller. So they, in addition to the tap room, they've got an outside patio space. They also have an arcade in the basement. So there's a lot of really interesting ways that artists could envision the space. Or interesting projects that could be done. And they're very open to supporting arts and having creatives within their space. We also have a call for community groups every year. And you know, a few folks who are here tonight might be community group participants, but this is really for community groups and galleries who are in Halifax or Dartmouth to participate and keep their doors open. So for instance, a lot of the university galleries or established art galleries participate by staying open from 6 to 12 for the festival on the Saturday night. Local businesses or for-profit groups can also submit for a project. The one thing for community and gallery groups is that Nocturne does not provide funding for participating galleries or community groups. So these should really be self-funded projects. And as well, they do need to still be free as well. We also currently have a call for expressions of interest for our 2024 festival curator. So the submission deadline for this is June 1st. Curators are generally responsible for developing a vision or theme for the festival and to curate our Anchor Projects program. So those are just our curated projects. Nocturne's Anchor Project program consists of site-specific installations and performance arts activations at sites across Halifax and Dartmouth. The selected applicants will receive a curatorial fee of $10,000 Canadian for the development of the theme, selection of artists, and administration of the curated selected Anchor Project in the program. So those are all the calls that we have going on right now. So there's lots of different ways for folks to get involved, either this year or next year. Yeah. So I'm going to hand it over right now to Morgan Bath to talk a little bit about the Artist Support Network and what that is for artists who are applying.
Hi, everyone. So the Artist Support Network is something that we launched last year, and we're really excited to build and grow on it this year. And our focus for this is providing mentorship. So if you haven't been in a festival like this before, or you just want to bounce ideas off of somebody, what we do is we provide you with a list of mentors that you can choose from that are usually other artists, arts administrators, and come from a variety of backgrounds so that you can really find somebody who speaks to where you need assistance in what you're doing. And we cover all of the costs for this, and you get between 1 to 5 sessions where you are able to work with somebody one-on-one and really help either develop your project or just have a sounding board with somebody, or even just utilize it for talking through the project after it's over to learn like what was successful, what wasn't, how you can use what you've created in the future. It's really about career building for you. And a big aim of what we're trying to do at Nocturne is really figure out how we can support artists in tangible ways that make your experience with us the best it can be. So if you're interested in participating in it, we'll have more information after the call closes and all of our artists are selected.
Yeah, and participation in this is not mandatory if you're selected either. So just putting that out. And accessibility. Morgan, did you want to speak to this as well?
Yeah, sure. So as part of the budget, you'll notice that we do have an accessibility line. And this is part of our initiative to make sure that we're creating projects that are accessible to everybody. So this can be a variety of things, whether it's ASL interpretation, personal care attendant, transcriber. There's a bunch of different ways that you can utilize this. And if you have any questions about any of it, feel free to reach out to us. We're happy to help you figure out in what ways your project can be a little bit more accessible and the costs that are involved with that. So we're happy to kind of talk all of those things through with everybody.
Great. Thanks, Morgan. Okay, so now we'll kind of start jumping into the meat of the proposal. And so this is where I'm hoping we can spend most of our time, and I assume most of the questions are going to come up. So yeah, like I said, don't hesitate to put any questions in the chat that you have, and we'll make sure that we get to them. And yeah, our goal here is to ensure, like, we want to help folks put together the best proposal that you can. And so really just talking through the different main components of the text and the budget and the support materials. So yeah. So when you go to the submission form, the first parts of it are fairly straightforward. It asks for, your artist bio and everything like that. But when you get into the project details, we're looking for some more details that'll help us get a strong vision of what your project is. So when we want you to describe your project, we want you to include any background information or cultural context for the project. So what makes this work relevant at this time and at this place? We want to know about the type of preferred venue, and really help us to figure out or to see and understand your vision for the space and what this venue would look like and what your work would look like in it. So, paint us that picture. Let us know what makes the work relevant at this time and at this place, and describe what it'll be like within the space. For technical details, we are really interested in kind of the more practical elements of the project. So we want to know all the stuff that will make it work. So any rentals that you might need, any access to power, any site specifications or virtual project components and requirements. If you have actors, technicians, security personnel, volunteers, assistants, or anyone else that you have involved or you have that are required for your project. Also, please note volunteers provided by Nocturne are not guaranteed. Really, it depends on the number of volunteers that we have sign up every year. So if things are integral to your project success, that's cool, but we want them to be equitably compensated for the project and not be given to volunteers. So for instance, things like this, we've had in the past, for instance, instances where there's an ask, oh, can the volunteers maybe change the batteries every hour? that's maybe something that you would have a project assistant do. So if it's integral to the project working, even if it's a simple task, we want to make sure that that's covered and not, we try and be very risk averse, I guess. So the other thing we also want to know is if you'll be requiring a tent. So there's different things, including tents, where we need this information on our end of things just for Halifax Regional Municipality, and getting all of the permits and working with the city in terms of making sure we have everything. So we do ask artists to consider rain for their projects as well, like Nocturne takes place night or day. And if this is something where you feel you might need a tent, let us know. And that's something that we would want to have included in the budget. And, you know, to take care of as well. Share anything beyond your project description for the selection committee in this section as well, to have a full picture of your project. So if there's anything technical, you know, just throw it in there. The more information that we have, the better. So one of the things that Nocturne is doing this year that's a bit different within our budget is we are asking artists to kind of design their own Carfax fee based on their projects. So one of the things, you know, previously there would be a set artist fee, but that doesn't necessarily fit for every project. So a single performance versus, I don't know, a marching band versus a sculptural installation versus something that has multiple performances over a few days would all have different artist fees. We want to also encourage artists to kind of become familiar with the Carfax fee schedule. For anyone here today who's not familiar with it, the Carfax fee schedule is something that provides a baseline, a minimum amount that galleries or arts organizations should be paying and compensating artists for. So I've pulled out on this slide and the next two of the main areas, but it doesn't necessarily mean that your work needs to fit into one of these two artist fee categories. I encourage you to take a look and see, and if you do have any questions about artist fees, because the documents can be kind of dry and intimidating and confusing, reach out to us. We are happy to help you, and we want to ensure that artists are compensated appropriately for the work that they're doing. So that's the bottom line there. Yeah, so we've also in the budget document written in a basic, a minimum artist fee of $550. So regardless of the project, the minimum artist fee that folks will receive will be $550. So even though it says solo here, if you're an independent artist and you're proposing a project, it would be $550 instead of the $508. But that's just kind of like a baseline. So if you are an artist collective, do kind of look at this to ensure that everyone kind of gets compensated in as part of the project and that the numbers are in there. And if we need to round up or round down or add, that's cool. And we'll look at that as well. And also as part of the application process, if we're like, oh, this isn't quite right, it's not the end of the world. We're making sure that the project is feasible, but we will come back to you if we do have any questions around the budget. So I don't want folks to stress about it. Yeah, so this one here was for exhibitions in other public places, which is a common one that we look to when setting our fees. The other one is performance in a festival, conference, or event not part of an exhibition. So this rate applies for single performance. For additional performances, the same work or at the same venue or project, each additional performance is 50% of the single work rate. Nocturne, we are a category 1 organization. So for instance, if you're submitting to do a single performance of something on the Saturday night as part of Nocturne, our baseline is still $550. That's cool. But if you're looking at doing a second performance, maybe on the Friday, or you're like, I can do 2 performances during Saturday, one at 6 and then one at 10, count that as 2 performances and add that additional 50%. So this, a lot of people ask, like, what is our budget? And because our works are so diverse, it's hard for us to say, and we don't want to say projects up to a certain amount or anything like that. We just want to be as open as possible. And so this kind of gives an example of works from 2021 and 2022 and what they cost. So from the lowest to the highest. So the yellow bars are the different projects and what they cost in 2021. The blue bars are the different projects and what they cost in 2022. So you can see there is quite a range in the projects. So yeah, don't be shy. The other thing I want folks to know is, you know, a lot of people under budget their projects, feeling that they're going to have less of a chance getting having their project accepted if it's too expensive. We are not looking at that necessarily. We're going to be looking at feasibility and that the project you're proposing is in line with the budget. So the folks who are on our jury and our board and myself and Morgan and B, we all have practices and are working artists as well. And we recognize the amount of work and money that goes into art. And so we want to, like, if we see something and someone's like, oh, this will only cost us $100. So like, we don't want you to be out of pocket and we don't want you to be stressed about money because of your project. We want you to price things accurately and take that time to get it put together a proper and accurate budget.
Melanie, do you mind if I add to that a bit?
Absolutely, sorry.
No worries. So the big thing is that the artist fee, we really want that to be your takeaway. That's like, that doesn't go back into the budget at all. That's like a huge part of it. And then the other thing that I just wanted to talk to you on the budget is the artist care line. So that can be anything from, like, if you have kids and you just need a babysitter for that amount of time while you're working on the project or the day of the festival, it can be something for that. It can be if you're planning, like if your install for your project is going to be pretty intensive and you need Uber Eats or something like that while you're on the site to just make sure you keep going. It's for things like that. So think about you and your well-being and what you might need to make this project as successful as possible. And we have, that's a limit of $250. But if you have questions of whether it's something that would fit into that, reach out. Like, we really are trying to utilize it and make this like something that's good for everybody participating.
Thanks, Morgan. And just a note, B put a link to Carfax Maritimes in the chat window. So if you want to take a look there, you'll see, you'll be able to access the 2023 Carfax fee schedule. There are also links to it throughout the application form as well. Before I kind of end, I'm going to just show everyone the budget template. And then we'll jump into questions. Sorry. All right. So this is the budget template. And you can see that there's some values that have already been put in here. So this is the minimum $550 artist fee that we've already put in. If anyone has any comments or anything around their budget, you can absolutely update this amount and then put any comments in here. You can overwrite the notes that we have here or put them underneath. We've also added an extra $13 artist fee that will be paying a successful artist. And this is really just for a promotional image that we'll get from you to help promote your work. It'll just be an Instagram photo of your work, before we have any, because a lot of times we don't have photos of course we won't have photos of your work at Nocturne until it's the night of. So we ask the artist to provide an image that we can use for promotional purposes and pay accordingly for that. It's small amount, but we want to make sure that we know as an artist every dollar counts. If you're interested in doing an artist talk or a workshop on the Friday, you would include a budget of $335 here. Once again, this is mandatory. Not everyone who, you don't have to do an artist talk if you're accepted or a workshop. You don't have to, it's not mandatory. So if you're not doing one, don't put that amount in here. If you are interested in doing one, put this amount in here. But it's not guaranteed either. So we will be kind of going through and seeing who's interested. And we'll try and figure out the schedule really based on creating diversity. So for instance, if everyone wants to do, I don't know, making light boxes, we don't want to have 7 light box workshops going on, so making sure we have very diverse experiences and talks for folks. And just making sure our timing works out. So we are still working on the schedule, but we want to know the interests and the kind of projects that we have from the artists who are successful. If you can only do an artist talk or a workshop if you're selected for a Beacon project on the Saturday. So you can't propose to only do a workshop or an artist talk. It is kind of a peripheral to your main project. In terms of materials, project costs, we cover expenses such as materials, various equipment rentals, travel if required, professional services, honorariums, accessibility, and artist care. So details about each of these are on the side. They are all optional costs. Things that we don't cover, if you need a new computer or something like hardware like that, we wouldn't pay for the purchase of that necessarily. But we would pay for rental of materials, of equipment. In terms of travel, if there is travel, look to the Canada Council fixed amounts for travel. That works well. Reference that, and there are some costs that have international and different province to province travel outlined in there. Professional services can be anything from tech support that you might need, an on-site assistant. It might be, you name it. If you need someone to help you develop a score or any kind of professional, who knows, it could be anything. In terms of honorariums, there might be people who are participating in your project, maybe in a periphery capacity, or maybe not. They're not contributors as artists or collaborators, but maybe people are helping who might receive an honorarium for various different things. And then we have the set amounts for accessibility and artist care. So yeah, as many details as you can provide for us about the budget, the better. Anything else put in there? Like I said, we try and be we're trying to be as open to different expenses and recognizing that projects come in so many different forms. We are trying to be as little prescriptive or as least prescriptive as possible with this. Right down here, you'll see, your additional funding, everything like that. What we want to see at the end is that these numbers balance. Right now it's balanced, so it's green. If I was to put, 200 in here, for instance, the color would change because it would not be balanced anymore. So really, we're assuming that the amount of your project is what you're asking for us from Nocturne. Yeah, so if you have additional funding that's coming from either provincial or national or other sources, let us know. I'll just jump over to the support material tab as well. So we aren't asking for people to submit images necessarily this year in JPEGs. What we're looking for is links to projects that you have online. These can be in any form. So if you have a project that you've done and you have it kind of detailed on a website, great, send us a link to that webpage. If you have something that's you've shared it on Instagram and it's an image that you want to share, that works great as well. If you do have a folder that is a Google Drive that has images in it, that works as well. So we're just looking for links to the content that you want to share, and it can be kind of stored as long as it's available to us. Yeah, so it should be fairly straightforward. All of these forms are view only right now, but you can download them, fill them out, PDF them, and then send them in with the rest of your support material. Yeah, so I'm not sure. Are there any questions that folks have? I wanted to leave as much time as possible because I know that there's probably quite a few different ideas that people have, and there might be some very specific information that people are looking for. Yeah, so I guess maybe first, Morgan or B, do you have anything extra that you'd like to add at all?
I have a couple questions in the chat.
Okay.
So you have, are all the art projects installed outdoors, or can there be indoor installations? And
yeah, that's a great question. So yeah, we do have outdoor and indoor installations. Oh, sorry. We do have outdoor and indoor installations. So indoor installations, generally folks will need to think about their venue and reach out to venues. We can absolutely help facilitate finding a venue if artists can provide as much detail as possible. So for instance, actually, this very last slide that we have here is of Hyperloop Theater, and they specifically requested like a project. Their project specifically was taking place in a very dark space, and we ended up working with a company that had an old restaurant that they were renovating. So it was just an empty cavernous concrete shell and that they installed into. So once we knew that they needed a very dark space and the kind of conditions that they needed, we were able to kind of go to folks in the community and see who had something that would work. So spaces can be inside or outside, any type of venue. They need to be accessible by the public though. So that's the thing. What I found is a lot of businesses and places are very open and accommodating to Nocturne and having their spaces being part of the festival. So yeah, they don't need to be outside. They just need to be accessible. B, did you want to keep going through the questions in the chat? Would that work?
Yeah. So we have for a video proposal, what might public accessibility include?
So I can take that one, Melanie. So what I would say for that is like transcription services would work, or even if you wanted to do like consultation with somebody, we can provide a consultation fee to somebody to just see where there might be some things, whether it's like flashing lights or something like that, that you just need to consider so that we can put accessibility triggers on some of the write-ups about the work.
And another question is how many proposals are you able to submit?
That's a good question. So you can submit one proposal to each of the different calls that we have. So if you're interested in submitting to our main call, but you also have a project you think that would work really great for Propeller, you can submit to that one too. If you have a project, for instance, that you're like, I want to go for Propeller, but I also want to, if it doesn't get in there, I want to have something, I want to submit the same thing to the Beacon projects, just without the design and to be considered for a different venue. You can do that as well, but only one kind of tour for each call stream, if that makes sense.
We have had people in the past apply like as a solo artist and as part of a collective. I would just warn that there's a lot of work involved with that, and I would be hesitant about applying twice to produce 2 projects for the same night because it's a lot of work involved.
Yeah, I think that's a thing. We want artists who are focusing on one work rather than maybe having a couple different things going on in the festival. Think about making one spectacular thing rather than a lot of smaller pieces.
We have another person asking for clarification about location and venue assignments. So they're asking if for outdoor installations, a location will be assigned to our work if we get accepted.
What we are wanting folks to do this year is, if you have an ideal venue in mind, let us know. So for instance, last year, there was an artist who was like, my work, I would really want it to be in the dome outside of the casino. And we're like, okay, so we're going to try really hard to get this venue for you. And we were able to get it. So if you have a specific venue in mind, and you're able to do that outreach and maybe get a letter ahead of time, or if the work is very dependent on a specific space, like it needs to be in this building because of the context, we kind of want to see that there's a conversation started, or that we can start the conversation if that needs to happen. Else we'd like to know, like, if your project, what are the ideal conditions? So if you're like, I need a dark space, or I need a back alley, or I need a parkade, the more details that you can give us to help find a venue and source that venue for you, the better, especially if you're an artist that is from out of town. I know when I participated in Nocturne, I wasn't at the time living here, and it was very dependent on the artistic community here to help kind of source the venue for me. And it worked out, but the more details that you can provide, the better. And it might be a bit of back and forth, but we would never leave an artist high and dry without a venue. But it will kind of help the proposal as well, having more sense of what that would be like. If you're just like, it can go anywhere, Why? You know, roaming projects are also allowed as well. Projects that are constantly moving through the streets or different neighborhoods, totally allowed as well. So it doesn't need to be stuck to one venue. The other thing that's important to know about venues is some of them have different requirements. So for instance, there's been instances where people have gone and they've had different things that they've installed around town, but one of them was like by the harbor, and it was actually federal space, and so like by a shipyard. And so it was taken down. So because there wasn't the, you know, HRM is fine, but we had to get permission from the Port Authority. So the more information that we can do to kind of help our logistics and make sure things don't get taken down or that they're planned around, the better. So, and generally, like the Port Authority is also really great to work with. We, you know, everyone is very accommodating and supportive of Nocturne. We just need to know and be able to plan.
Can I ask a question verbally?
Absolutely.
So I noticed on the website a piece, I think it was last year, called Namesake, which was a big outdoor video. I just couldn't get a sense of if that was a projection, if it was using digital signage. I just want to know like what they used for that last year, that you've had a history working with and was successful as an outdoor video, multiple screen video situation.
So those screens are permanently installed. It's called Rogers Square.
Okay.
And so it's kind of an underpass below Rogers Square and, you know, some other big towers downtown. And so they're always there, and they usually have commercials or Rogers content on them. But during Nocturne, they're used for programming often, and that could be different kind of content, so videos or animations or anything. Yeah, if that's a space, it is generally a very popular space. So once again, there's no guarantees. If it's an ideal space, let us know. And if it's not available or anything like that, we'll definitely try and find something else. But then also think about it, like if your exhibition, if your project requires 10 screens, those 10 screens might work there, but then also put in the budget that you need 10 screens to make this happen. And then it's like, okay, we've managed to get it in Rogers Square. We don't need to pay for those 10 screens. So I don't want you to don't compromise your project, if that makes sense, for a specific venue. Let us know what you need, and then we try and fit it in where we can.
Okay, great. And I assume, sorry, while we're on this, I assume there's no audio attached to those screens, right?
No.
Right. Okay.
Actually, I'll have to double check on that. I don't think so, or I don't feel that it's like very loud, you know,
Yep. Great, thank you.
I also have a question of how many artists / projects are generally in Nocturne.
So last year, between all of the different types of projects that we had 63 projects. So that includes ones that were curated in, community groups and galleries, spotlight projects. So those are projects that are done by different arts organizations that we've maybe partnered with, for instance, as well as the Beacon projects, which is this call. So the amount of projects that generally are accepted from this call will be less than 20. But I couldn't say exactly how many, you know, so it'll be up to 20. It really depends on the budget that we have. And those things that kind of, you know, we're still figuring out all those details as they come together, and the type of projects and, you know, just picking what fits. So I can tell you it'll be between, probably between 10 and 20 projects. And that doesn't include the daytime Dartmouth project or the propeller. So in addition to those ones, it would be an additional 10 to 20 projects.
Right, we have another question just about the scale
Yep.
and kind of scope of projects. It says, what scale of installation are you looking for? I have an idea for a small semi-interactive art making exhibit. Is that too small of a scope? And are complicated art exhibits more what you're looking for rather than an active art exhibit?
You know, we appreciate things on big scale and small scale. Like I know in the video, there was a giant inflatable. I know in previous years, there's been a Ferris wheel. So things have been quite large, but things that are small and intimate and meaningful are also encouraged as well. So we want to pick the best work. We're not picking necessarily the biggest work.
Yeah.
If that makes sense.
And as far as like thinking about like interactive works and everything like that, like two great examples of works is like Melanie, actually, her project had these small little interactive things that you would carry around the festival. So it was these small little moments within it. And then last year we had another artist, Lynette, who her project developed over the scope of the 3 days that was the festival. Last year, the festival was a little bit longer. So it was about interacting with the public, getting their stories, collecting these memories of HRM and where their like wonderful little spots were. So those types of like community interactions are a really important aspect to Nocturne as well.
What's next, V?
Well, that's all the questions we have in the chat at the moment.
Oh, wow. Does anyone have any verbal questions at all?
Hi there.
Yeah.
Yeah, in terms of like weatherability or exposure to the elements, obviously that is unpredictable. How much sort of like leniency or even like gambling with the possibility of bad weather is there? Or does everything have to be 100% weatherproof?
There's definitely a sense of risk. You know, with having things outdoors. I think, you know, we consider things, you know, like last year was an interesting year because we had Fiona that came through like a few weeks before the festival, and we had so many works on the waterfront, and I was like, oh my God, we're gonna have to move 20 projects, you know? So thinking about things like that, we always try and just think about a plan B. And if stuff needs to move indoors, or can it be facilitated with a tent, or, you know, we do say plan for all weather conditions, but, you know, within reason, you know, if your work is mostly weatherproof, I guess, you know, that's fine, you know, but considering it is an outdoor festival and it is something where people mostly are going to be outside, there's going to be a lot of people experiencing it as well. So dealing with crowds and everything. And then also, yeah, heavy winds. I think having something for 6 hours is more manageable than having something over a few days as well. That's something that we've learned over the past years that works, that might have been durable for 6 hours, maybe didn't withstand for 3 days. So also shortening our hours and thinking about that and doing the really intense Saturday night to kind of reduce that risk as well. So yeah, we offer insurance that like liability insurance. So if your work is installed and it gets windy and it blows away and knocks someone over, we have liability insurance for that. But if it gets damaged by the rain or anything like that, or, you know, anything like that, we don't have insurance for that. So that would be the artist's own responsibility. So, yeah.
And what happens with fees if a project is canceled or undeliverable on the night?
So, you know, once again, we take that as is, and we would definitely consider that. We pay 80% of our fees up front. So upon the signing of the contract, 20% after delivery of the project. So, you know, yeah, you would receive most of your fees in that instance. And we definitely don't want to like leave artists high and dry, recognizing the work that you've done, especially if the artwork, like if something happens that's beyond our control. If there is a hurricane, like we're not going to say, sorry, none of the artists are getting paid. People will be getting paid. Yeah.
So I guess, and if there's something like a performance which has an actual like beginning and end time, that could apply to any project. The idea of having a really targeted event time.
Yeah. Yes.
Okay.
And there's been projects that have had targeted event times as well. So starting, you know, there's things that have been durational that have gone from 6 p.m. till midnight. There's things that have had performances on the hour, every hour. There are things where it's been a one-time thing. And maybe it's been an hour-long performance. Speaking of weather as well, not to jinx us at all, but I think in the 16 years of Nocturne, it's only rained once. So just putting that out there.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Are there any other questions? Either in the chat feed or if anyone has any questions that they'd just like to ask verbally.
Maybe I'll ask one more, because there was another big video project I noticed, What Will We Leave Behind? Looked like a rear screen projection onto the glass of the building. I just want to technically know how they achieved that. Did they put a film on the glass, or do you know?
Yeah, so that building, that's the Halifax Central Library. And they actually deal a fair amount with projections in that space. It is a fantastic building for projections. Pretty much, I think every window in that space for Nocturne has had projection in it at some point. And they have their projection magic. I think they know exactly kind of what they're doing in terms of installing. I don't know all of the specifications that they have technically, but I do believe it's rear projection that they're doing.
But it's in place, or is that something that the artist would have to budget for a rear projection screen? Is more the case. Why I'm asking. You know.
Yeah, B or Morgan, do you have details about that space that you might be able to share?
Can you just repeat the end of that question? I was replying to something in the chat and I missed it.
It was just understanding if the library already had kind of a rear projection screen for the windows, or if that's something I'd have to include in a budget if that was a site I wanted to propose. And projector would be the same.
Yeah. The projector, I would definitely put into your budget no matter what, because I don't believe that they have, like, if you're looking for specific specs on your projector, always add it in the budget. As far as the film goes, I'm not 100% sure on that. And if B doesn't know, I'm happy to ask the artist who did it last year and inquire about that.
Yeah, the artist last year, they put up their own screen for that project. So.
Yeah, I would err on the side of putting everything that you might need into the budget, and then, you know, there's no surprises.
Right. Okay, great.
Yeah, and then if we find a venue for you that has some of those requirements, then we can take them away.
Right. Got it.
And for anybody who's not local, for equipment rentals, we do have along in McQuaid. And then there's also CFAT, Center for Art Tapes. They do some good rentals. They have a smaller supply of things, but it's specifically like an arts center. So they have really great gear, and we can definitely rent through them.
For production materials budget, how much sort of pre-production can that include? Like, let's say I had to hire performers to make a video that was going to be used in the piece, or had to rent a space to shoot something in advance of the exhibition. How far does that stretch the materials budgets?
I feel that any project really would be defined by the scope of the timeline as well, and what you can do. Artists are going to be kind of we're aiming to notify artists mid-May. So, you know, we want to be as accommodating as possible within, reason, and acknowledging that people might have works that are already in progress. Like if it's already a work that's in progress, I don't think that you can budget back for things that you've already started, similar to other calls. So it would be anything that you haven't started at the time of the submission.
Thanks.
And keep in mind as well, if we're having any questions about the budget or anything with that, we're not just going to give it an automatic no. We're going to come back with questions as part of the jury and really have a conversation. So it's not a hard yes or no on any of those things.
Yeah, we're going to be looking, like, feasibility will be part of what we're looking at, but we're really going to be looking for the idea first, and then is it feasible within the budget? Okay, let's go back and make sure the budget fits the project and see if there's anything else here. We want to make sure that we're getting all the pieces. Any questions that we have, we want to just make sure that you have the strongest chance, and giving everyone equal opportunity. Any other questions?
It's me again.
Yeah, no worries.
As you know, Carfax fees are suggested. They are suggested rates. Has it happened, or is there room for artists to create their own fee schedule in any way, or is it strictly limited by the minimums provided by the Carfax suggestion?
No, I think artists can definitely put forward, so for instance, we've already kind of raised beyond the minimum. Our minimum, no matter what, is $550. If you have, I would put things in with as much detail as possible. So if you're like, I'm putting a Carfax fee of $700 in for this, just let us know why. Like, if you can justify it, that's great. If you're putting something in and you're like, I'm giving myself $7,000 just because, with no context, we're going to question that, right? Of course. And we know that not everything fits. Like, so the example I always use is like, if you're submitting for a marching band, what does that look like? It's not going to be one Carfax fee that works for that. Or if you're submitting, yeah. So really, this is, to help folks become comfortable with the Carfax fees as well. I know a lot of artists kind of know what they are, but to really dive in and think about them, and we can help you. And if you have questions, you're like, I'm not sure if it fits into this category or to that category, or, how do I do this marching band? We'll try and figure that out with you. We want to, be supportive. We don't want to be a barrier for your application. And we're figuring it out too, like just recognizing that so many projects are different, and that Carfax is a minimum. Any other questions?
I guess one more. Is there, I'm thinking of pitching a pre-existing project that I think would work really well in this context. And there's no disadvantage to pitching a piece that's already been realized, is there?
Nope, not at all. So a lot of works, you know, that are already resolved, that's absolutely fine. Thinking of them within a different space, we know that will become different works as well. So
well, and I've even, like, the piece actually involves about 100 small short videos, and I'm already kind of compiling the ones that I think would work best there. So it's kind of being customized for
right.
the idea of the context, but I just wanted to kind of feel you out in that regard.
Yeah. So all works, and you know, really we're not looking necessarily at emerging artists or art that is new or being created specifically for the festival. We know that things being included might have new production costs to finesse them or to adapt them for Nocturne. That might be different. So you might have fewer, but you might still have production costs, or you might not have any production costs. You might have, you know, so really everything is different. And yeah.
Okay. Great. Thank you.
You're welcome. Anyone else?
And
Yeah.
just as a budget tip as well, because this is something that I noticed did pop up quite a bit in previous applications, is when you're applying for something, don't give us like a rough estimation of a fee, like, oh, I think it'll be about $500 here, $200 here. The more specific you can be about things, you don't have to like push pennies onto absolutely everything, but we just want to know that you considered what's in your budget. Because then we'll know that you're considering everything that goes into it and you've looked into these things and they're not just guesses at something.
And it'll make your job easier once you're accepted and you've already done that work, and you know exactly, because you've gotten all your proper quotes. So it'll save you time. Other tips for proposals. Absolutely check out the archive. You can see some of the projects that have been done in the last few years. That might be helpful. Reach out to us if you do have any questions. Like I said, we're here to help and ensure that you put forward the best proposal possible. And other tips. This is my first kind of year, so I'm thinking Morgan or B, do you have any other tips?
Well, I have one question that might direct. So this, again, because it is a pre-existing piece, I have images and even video excerpts on my website. So when I'm filling out the visual support material, am I just putting one link that takes you to that piece on the website, or a link for each individual image and video and
I would say, you know, like, so it's up to 10. If you specifically want us to reference a specific video, link directly to that video.
Yeah, the video is comprised of 50 videos. So there's you can't watch 50. And anyways, but it's just on the website, it's like documentation, like installation shots, and then stills, and then a video that's just a short excerpt. So it's like one link will get you to all of them, as long as you're willing to press buttons forward.
That's fine. Yeah, I think, you know, we all know how to navigate web pages and stuff.
Really?
And so, well, yeah. So really just thinking about for the jurors and going through and making things as streamlined for them. So if all your information about a certain project is on a page and clickable, that's absolutely fine. If in your proposal you want to say something like, this work references work A, B, and C. Here are the links to work A, B, and C, and how it references each of those different things. That might be useful, so we know exactly what we're looking for on those pages.
Okay, perfect. Thanks.
Yeah, I'd say as long as we're not trying to siphon through and pick where those things are on the page, as long as it's super clear, then that works perfectly.
Yeah. bring on the questions. You've got
One
us.
more, I've got another one.
Yeah.
What is the window of installation time or fit up time? Like say there was a piece that is optimized for nighttime or dark time viewing, and it needed to be installed in the situation that it's going to be exhibited in. Like how many nights ahead of time could you be working on it, and how much flexibility is there for working after hours?
Yeah, that's a great question. And if there's specifics around that, put that in the technical details as part of your proposal. So if you need a week, let us know. And when we're trying to find a venue for you, we'll make sure that we have those details. Generally, you know, artists come about a week ahead of time. And it really depends. But I know this year we have, for some kind of established projects already, there's folks who are coming a month ahead of time, you know, but once again, like it, you know, it really depends on your project. I think most projects give like 2 or 3 days for installation, but once again, we're not prescriptive around that either.
And are we to budget for hotel and travel if we're out of town in that?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. Please include any travel costs as well. That is included in the project budget. There are line items there, and just break it down. And I don't know if we have a set amount aside for hotel, but you know, like take a look, get a little quote. If you know that you're going to be in town for 5 days, or you need to be in town for a week, or you're just coming in the Friday and leaving on the Sunday, you know, budget accordingly.
Okay.
Anything
so
else?
Melanie, we do have another question in the chat. It says they're probably going to email us this question, but they might, for example, need a scissor lift for installation. They're very expensive to rent, and they're just not sure if that would work within the budget. My gut says to just email us and get into a bit more of the specifics, and we'll go over that. But do you have anything initially to say about it?
Sorry, what was the piece of equipment?
A scissor lift.
Oh, scissor lift. Yeah, and those are things that put it in the details, because those are things that we can often get like from HRM, the Halifax Regional Municipality, to help with support with the install. So things like that, as long as we know that they're there and put them in the budget. And when we're going through it, we might be able to say, great, we've got access to a scissor lift and someone who's got like the training to drive it or use it or whatever. Yeah.
Another question here, for projects outside in a tent, do we need a generator?
Well, it depends. Yeah, it depends if you have power. Like we'll definitely try and find power for you, but definitely there have been projects in the past that have required generators. So if your project requires power, let us know. If it's something that is going to be in the park and might not we'll first try and find you access to power before a generator, just because they're loud and everything like that. So yeah, let us know if you need power. If there's some reason that you prefer a generator for some reason, put that in there. Or if you need.
Can I just say, let's say the only venue that's available for my project, which is a video screening, is in a tent. This is what I'm asking about. Do I need a generator for something like that? For the projector and other electrical equipment that might be involved.
We might, but I feel like we are pretty good at sourcing power from different places.
Okay.
Yeah. So
right.
if we know that you need power, we wouldn't put you in a park with no power anywhere. We would find a spot that had power for you.
Great. Thank you.
I want to also note, like a lot of spaces down by the waterfront as well have free Wi-Fi. for projects, which is really handy as well. When I did my project, that was a godsend. So things like that, if you need Wi-Fi for your project to work, anything like that, those are important details that'll help us define a location and a venue for you as well.
Thank you.
Any other questions? No. Well, I think we might end a couple minutes early then, unless there's anything else. But if anyone does have any questions, they can contact either Morgan or myself. We're happy to help. And no questions are too big or too small. We want to help you with your proposals, and you know, we're super excited to hear everyone's ideas. And thank you so much for joining us today. Yeah, it's lovely, and yeah, I'm super excited for this year's festival. Morgan B, thank you as well for helping facilitate. It's been really great. And yeah, thank you again to everyone who's attended tonight. See you.
Thank you.
Bye. I'm going to stop recording.